So let's unpack those movements on this Monday evening with Chantal Marx from FNB Wealth and Investments. A very good evening to you, Chantal. Not a great start to the week for the local bourse, albeit a marginal close in the red with losses across most of the major indices. We saw companies like RCL, Richemont in the red today. What were some of the biggest drivers that you saw locally and I suppose globally?
Yeah, so the market actually opened flattish and then pushed higher for most of the day. But we had some global PMI numbers, that's Purchasing Managers Index numbers, which gives us a sense of what factory managers are expecting and business owners are expecting for the economy going forward. So we had these data points come out from the EU, from the UK and the US, and it was quite disappointing, which tells us that those economies may be running out of steam. Now, that's what we want from an interest rate perspective, because it could mean inflation is cooling. But I guess the worry is that the recessionary conditions that could cause will have a knock-on impact on business profitability. And of course, the JSE wasn't spared from that impact.
Let's talk about the price of Brent crude, Chantal. We saw it's increasing quite a bit, currently at around $82 a barrel. That doesn't bode well for net importers of Brent like South Africa. So the outlook there, and I suppose the drivers for the higher prices, apart from the demand that we're going to be seeing coming from the US.
So Brent crude oil prices have been under pressure for some time, and there's a lot of speculation around why that was the case, because producers have been cutting their output of oil in order to counter these weak prices. But demand has been steadily kind of improving as well, even though it hasn't been as great as expected, particularly out of China. So I think that there may have been some sort of a market anomaly attached to that. Perhaps some smart traders trying to gain a profit from the oil price being under pressure. At least that's what the producers are speculating. And now we're just going to a more normalized environment. Production hasn't picked up from the producers, and we are seeing in the longer term an economic recovery coming through. So all of that results in oil prices increasing. And of course, that is bad for a country like South Africa, as you mentioned, a net importer of oil, and by extension, the rand and inflationary conditions here as well.
Yeah. Before we get into company updates from today, I just want to reflect on two big losers on the local bourse, Richemont, as well as RCL Foods. RCL, of course, indicating a lot of pressure in previous updates around the operating conditions, load shedding, one of those as well. But Richemont, do you think that there was still a digestion of last week's sales numbers, where sales in the United States have slumped quite a bit?
So for RCL, I think the near-term outlook is quite challenging. You have a situation where they have a big chicken business, and kind of the input costs or feed costs around that chicken business is increasing at a massive rate, even more so that we have some concerns over grain availability out of Ukraine going forward. They're also contending with a sugar market that is under a lot of pressure, and with Tongaat Hulett also struggling, they've had to come to the party to settle certain levies attached to those businesses. So that really has hit profitability, and I think sentiment there is just generally negative. For Richemont, we've seen luxury goods manufacturers come under pressure broadly, I think because the recovery in China post its reopening after COVID-19 restrictions has been a lot more tempered than what they would have liked. So because that is a little bit slower than expected, it means that perhaps the recovery on that side of the world is going to take longer than what was initially thought.
Here's a company update. Amplats, their half-year earnings not looking too great, Chantal, slashing that dividend, load shedding, logistical issues, as well as, suppose, the lower demand for commodities and the price of commodities coming down, putting some pressure on that business. Your thoughts on the half-year numbers that they put out today?
So you would have seen that the share price didn't react by much, and that's because they put out a very detailed profit warning a couple of weeks ago, as well as a production report last week. So we had a fair sense of where the issues were, and this result just confirmed that the issues were lower PGM prices, maintenance at certain of their operations, load shedding, network industries, all the stuff that South African businesses are really struggling with at the moment. That said, we do think that platinum and PGMs generally could be at a cyclical low point right now. And as the global economy starts recovering from the impact of higher interest rates, high inflation, pressure on global disposable income, we could see that reverse to a certain extent. And that should be supportive for a company like Amplats that now has a very low base to contend with. And hopefully some of the domestic issues that it's grappling with will also be resolved over time.
Yeah, and then the opportunities that now present themselves for Amplats, Chantal, that mandatory offer for RB Platinum coming through, their plans to delist RB Plat from the JSE, a really good or key investment that Amplats, many would say, have made here, and the optimism around the opportunities that it's going to create once everything has been finalized.
Yes, I think this was a relief for Amplats. The fact that Northam decided to exit that race and also to tender their shares in RB Plats, because in a delisted environment, it's much easier for those companies to integrate from a head office perspective. And of course, their operations are very close to one another in the Rustenburg area, which I think will give great optionality for Amplats that has actually struggled to find growth in ounces, particularly in South Africa. So I think for them, a really good deal. We'll have to see how the execution plays out, right? One of the risky points when you are making a big acquisition like this is that the execution is often a lot more difficult than anticipated and comes at higher cost and less synergy gains than they would have liked. But only time will tell for now. At face value, it looks like a good thing. And yeah, we'll bid farewell to RB Plats.
No, we do bid farewell to them indeed. But as you say, the opportunities then become endless for an Amplats who have now finalized that deal. Thank you very much, Chantal, for that update as always. That is Chantal Marx from FNB Wealth and Investments joining us to unpack the market movements that we saw on the JSE this afternoon.